welcome to Hank the Battle, the show where we discuss all things Hank. Okay, that may be an exaggeration. I mean, we're not gonna talk about Hank from King of the Hill, or Hank Pym, or Hank Azaria. We're gonna be talking about some very specific things Hank.
That's right, today we're going way off the beaten path and not talk about G.I. Joe.
Well, sort of.
Instead, we're gonna take a look at one of the many knockoffs other companies made of G.I. Joe.
But first, let's clear something up.
Namely, what the difference is between a knockoff and a bootleg. Because online, especially on eBay, there seems to be some confusion. A bootleg, when talking about toys, is one where a company uses a copyrighted or trademarked concept they don't own, or they make molds of existing toys they don't own either. And sometimes it's both. For the purpose of G.I. Joe, I present this figure that uses parts of the G.I. Joe character Chameleon from 2000, though with less articulation.
This kind of stuff is violating copyright and or trademark law.
A toy knockoff, on the other hand, is one that's inspired by an existing toy and relies on kids, or mostly parents, not realizing that it's an unrelated product. But it doesn't use any copyrighted characters or existing toy molds. A good example is Leonard Toys' The Core, which were military-style action figures that used the same size and type of body construction as G.I. Joe, but they were all Leonard's unique characters and molds. And Leonard were not the only toy company by far that put out G.I. Joe-style action figures.
There were so many.
Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, wait a minute, they use the exact same body construction as G.I. Joe. Doesn't Hasbro own that concept, so isn't this violating copyright anyway?
Well, surprisingly, no.
It turns out you can't copyright the human body, so any toy company can use the body construction of any doll or action figure that already exists. Though they can't use the exact molds, since those fall under the character copyright of whoever the figure is depicting.
Let me give you just one example.
You could make a figure like this and call it a US Army General, but you couldn't call it Hawk or use any specific body parts from the G.I. Joe Hawk figure. The fact that you can't copyright the human body is also why the original G.I. Joe figure from the 60s had a scar on his cheek and a reversed thumbnail, so they could make it a distinct character and had a way to prove if somebody else ripped off their molds.
Anyway, those were a whole lot of words to say that today we'll be talking about a knockoff, not a bootleg.
And we'll of course be talking about Hank, or to give him his full name, Commando Hank. This is Hank.
Say hi, Hank. Hank says hi.
And it should be obvious why I picked Hank to talk about.
I'm the security. I am Hank.
Yeah, it's the name. That's pretty much the only reason. G.I. Joe had names like Storm Shadow, Roadblock, and Snake Eyes. And here we have Hank, which is just inherently funny. But you can't really have an entire review based on a funny name, unless it's Skidmark.
Which means we have to delve a little deeper.
So meet Commando Hank. This figure was released in 1986 with maybe all original body parts? I mean, they could have been used for other figures, I don't know. He was produced by toy company Remco as part of the US Forces Defenders of Peace line.
Okay, that name is pretty generic.
But to be fair, you gotta remember, so was the term G.I. Joe, being a World War II slang word for an American soldier before it became iconic, so I can't complain too much about US Forces. Plus, it could always be worse, like this toy line called Special Force.
There's not trying, and then there's really not trying.
Anyway, Remco wasn't really known for their military action figures, though they did put out figures for Sergeant Rock, Conan, and Crystar. Those were all licensed properties though, but US Forces were their own creation to take advantage of the enormous popularity of G.I. Joe at the time. Commando Hank here has a brown helmet that's not removable, a black tank top that's just painted on, not molded, beige pants with brown camo, and a black belt and shoes. The detailing is not completely on par with G.I. Joe, but it's not bad either, and it's honestly not a bad look.
But it's another thing that's a bit generic.
Then again, there are quite a few Joes that look like generic soldiers, so Hank doesn't lose any points there. Where he does fail though is when it comes to the quality of the plastic. It is far inferior to that of a G.I. Joe figure. It's pretty damn brittle, going so far that the arms can come off. Yeah, handle Hank with care. Same goes for all figures from this line, really.
I know that I often, and with good reason, complain about how cheap Hasbro can be.
But I have to admit they never used cheap, bad quality plastic in the original line. Remco, however, did, as did most companies that made G.I. Joe knockoffs. The only ones that were on par with Hasbro were Leonard with their Corpse line. Anyway, it's time to talk about Hank's accessories, which is a bit of a problem since I found this one in the attic and I had no clue what, if anything, he came with. The only way to be sure would be to find a carded version.
So I did!
He came with a fat gun that also had a rocket or RPG launcher. It's made of a soft rubbery plastic that bends really easily and is quite breakable. I actually found the loose gun, but the launcher has broken off because it's so fragile. Also, for a gun this large, it has an hilariously tiny bullet magazine underneath. And as the packaging proudly proclaims, this figure comes with a free sticker. Ooh boy! It depicts a wreath with an antique rifle over it and the words US Forces above. So I guess this is their logo, even though it's not on the actual packaging itself. And though it seems that that's it for the accessories, that's not actually true, as there are some on the figure itself.
Kind of.
The helmet has a visor, the torso has webbing with a gun and holster, and the arm has a band with a knife attached. All these things are made from that rubbery stuff too, though much thinner. Removing them or even trying to mess with any of this stuff will cause it to break, so I'm being very generous by calling them accessories at all, though I must admit they do add to the look of the figure. And that was the action figure. Overall, it's got a pretty good look and doesn't look too out of place next to your G.I. Joes, but you definitely need to handle it with care. This was also the only action figure Commando Hank ever got, as far as I know anyway. Yeah, there is surprisingly less info out there about this toy line than there is about, G.I. Joe and stuff. What a shock.
Which means it's time to talk about the character. He doesn't have one, so you're free to make up your own if you want. I know I did. That was fun.
Yeah, while G.I. Joe had file cards, comic books and cartoons to flesh out the individual characters, Remco provided none of that stuff. All you got were his name and what outfit he belonged to, US Forces, Defenders of Peace. And the cryptic designation US-1. That has nothing to do with the Marvel comic series, and it is explained, sort of, on the back of the card. There's no file card, as the back is entirely made up of drawings advertising the other figures in the line.
So let's see what other characters there are in the line that features Commando Hank.
First we have Brushfire, who looks like Rambo and might be the character on the front of the packaging. That name's okay, and so is the next one, Protector. Things go downhill as we get to Airman John, which rivals Commando Hank for underwhelming names. Things don't improve much with Karate Star, who has a sword and a staff, things that are not used in karate.
I mean, the word karate literally means empty hand. It's kind of a giveaway.
Next is this Rakondo looking dude who's called Jungle Raider. That's kinda lame. Then we get Martial Master, a name that's equally lame.
We end on a high note though.
With frickin' Combat King. That's right, we've got a guy called the Combat King.
That's both awesome and so stupid.
Oh right, I forgot to explain the US-1 thing. On the back, all characters are just marked US-1 to 8. And although there are 8 figures here, the actual 1986 toy line had about 12 figures, with 11 more that got released in 1990. By the way, this card also shows Remco's dedication to quality, as the plastic that also forms the bubble sticks out from the carton.
Wow, they really didn't give a crap, did they?
One last thing I want to mention is specific to this card. It's fascinating how you can read the history of this particular toy by studying it. Firstly, this thing was originally sold in Belgium.
2 things point to that.
There are stickers on it that have Dutch and French text, which translate to movable arms and legs and sticker next to the Remco logo, and in the top right it says ages 5 and up. The reason for this is that there's a law in Belgium saying that anything you sell has to have packaging in both Dutch and French, since both are official languages here. And these stickers are the barest minimum effort to comply with that law.
The second thing that proves that it was sold in Belgium is the price sticker in the right corner.
Which is in Belgian francs, our currency before we switched to the euro. By the way, 75 francs was about $1.90 at the time. For comparison, G.I.Joe figure sold for about $5. The price sticker also tells us this was sold in 1988, so 2 years after the line came out in the US.
But wait, there's more!
There's a second price sticker. It's next to the head of this unholy love child of Rambo and Chuck Norris, and that one says it's €3, about $3.50. So this was resold for more than the original price, and not even that long ago, since the date on that price tag is June of 2020. The store is called the Kringwinkel. This type of store is something like Goodwill in the US. People donate second-hand stuff to these stores, that's then sold very cheaply as a sort of a charity thing. My guess is that this figure was part of some long-forgotten toy store overstock that got discovered by relatives of whatever toy store owner still had stuff from the 80s stored.
That kind of thing is like a toy collector's holy grail.
So seeing something like this turn up at Belgian Goodwill is really weird. So, from 1988 to 2020, and then to me through eBay in 2021, Commando Hank here has had quite a life.
To be honest, I was planning to open this card up so I could show off the figure in all its glory, but then I realized what history it had, so I changed my mind.
And that was Commando Hank. Now, you might be wondering why I decided to spend an entire episode on a G.I. Joe knockoff.
Well, it all started as a joke, really.
While browsing for G.I. Joe on eBay, I found the listing for this very carded figure and made a joke on Twitter about the name. By coincidence, a little later, I found my own figure in the attic, which I again shared on Twitter.
And to my surprise, quite a few people thought Hank was cool.
Despite of, or perhaps because of the name. Hell, people have even made G.I. Joe custom figures of him. So, the longer I thought about it, the more I wanted to do an episode.
That's right, I too started worshipping at the altar of Hank.
And finally, I went, oh the hell with it, I'll buy the carded figure and we'll do a review.
So here we are!
You know, this was pretty damn fun. I might just do more reviews of knockoffs in the future.
Let me know if you want to see more of this kind of thing in the comments below. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing? Hank would like, and subscribe, and do all that good stuff. We love Hank.
The powers that be